I know it's been a few hours, but I'm still pissed. Missed opportunities. My Knicks. If this shit keeps up, they're not going to be able to tell the difference between a Knicks fan and a Cowboys fan. The Stephen A. Smith Show in the house. Let's go. I am having a very, very bad day. Let's just get that out the way right now. It's a very bad day. I'm not in a good mood. Okay? Yes, I'm obligated to say to you, welcome to the Stephen A. Smith Show, the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I'm usually coming at you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Thank you very, very much. My subscribers have now eclipsed 634,000. It keeps growing and growing and growing. Thanks for the love and the support that you all have been giving me. You keep it coming. I'm going to keep on coming, okay? We know what I'm going to say. We know I'm going to ask you to get my book, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes, now in paperback. Go to straightshooterbook.com. Once again, that's straightshooterbook.com. It's now in paperback, okay? But damn it, I'm not in a good mood. I'm not even in a good mood. I'm not in a good mood to sell my book. I'm not in a good mood to sell this podcast. I'm not in a good mood to do anything. And Tyrese Maxey of the Philadelphia 76ers has everything to do with it. Everything. 46 points en route to an improbable comeback victory by the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 5 at Madison Square Garden last night, where the Sixers pulled within 3-2, prevented the New York Knicks from closing out a series on his home court in the last 25 years. It's been 25 years since they've done it. Now, this guy, Maxey, is a star, a possible future face of the NBA. Hit a 35-foot game-time logo three-pointer in the waning moments of regulation to force overtime, but that was after he hit a three and converted a four-point play because this dude, Mitchell Robinson, the clumsy big man for the New York Knicks, who seems to have two left feet and no brain at times, ends up fouling this dude and giving him a four-point play. Look at this play right here. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Why would you do that? New York Knicks were up 6 with 28.6 seconds left in regulation. Jalen Brunson was en route to having 40 points. The New York Knicks were about to close out the series. They would have beaten the Sixers 4-1, taking them out in 5 games, and as a result, marched on to the Eastern Conference semifinals, in all likelihood going up against the Indiana Pacers, who are no joke, even though the Milwaukee Bucks beat them last night without Giannis and without Damian Lillard. I cannot emphasize enough how disgusted I am with what I saw. I know that Tyrese Maxey is no joke. 46 points, 17 to 30 shooting. You look at Embiid, he's playing on one leg. He has Bell's palsy, for crying out loud, face contorted and all of this other stuff. Still dropped a 19-point triple-double. I mean, what can you say? The Sixers, they deserve all the credit in the world. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But we cannot act like the New York Knicks didn't give it away. Josh Hart, love Josh Hart. Love his energy, love his passion, love his fervor, love his toughness. But he plays out of control. He's too damn erratic. Outlet passes, turnovers, attacking the basket against Embiid when you know that's not the decision to be making. Pull the ball out, slow it down, control the clock. You could do all of that. Somebody exercising their brain would have made those decisions. But that's not what happened last night. Mitchell Robinson, I already told you what his two left-footed ass is doing out there and how that jeopardized everything they were doing. But I got news for you, too. Jalen Brunson doesn't get let off the hook in all of this either. Now, he ended up dropping 40 points. He's had 87 points over the last 2 games. I get all of that. But damn. Yo, bro, 8 shots in overtime, and you only generated 2 for others? You the point guard. McBride was out there. And Anunoby was out there. You couldn't make sure somebody else other than yourself shot the damn ball? Really? Really? You're a lot of things. You're great. You're an MVP candidate. But you ain't Steph Curry. Come on, man. You got to pass it. And then the time you decided to pass, you jump in the air. You get contested by Batum, and what do? Try to throw it into the right corner to Isaiah Hartenstein, who can't shoot the ball 5 feet away from the basket, so you know he wasn't anticipating the pass. His job is to go crash the boards. No wonder it ended up being a turnover. The New York Knicks have now placed this series in jeopardy. Because even though I'm still picking them to win this series, who's to say they're going to win Game 6? And if they lose Game 6, series tied 3-3. And then they go back to the Garden for Game 7, having surrendered a 3-1 lead that's now tied 3-3. And the pressure's all on the New York Knicks to salvage this series by winning the Game 7 at Madison Square Garden. Against a dude in Maxey who's averaging over 35 this series against them. Against a dude in Embiid who's on one leg and still dropping triple doubles right after he's dropped 50 on you. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. But this is a situation involving the Philadelphia 76ers and the New York Knicks right now. I still got the New York Knicks winning this series. It just ain't going to be easy. Let me get on to my next subject because that involves the Los Angeles Lakers. We got to head west and discuss the future of the Lakers, whose season ended Monday night at the hands of Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets yet again. I'll get to LeBron himself in a moment, but I want to focus on the team and the front office first. Back in January, former Laker big man Shaquille O'Neal questioned whether players like LeBron and Anthony Davis actually listened to head coach Darvin Ham. He's been under fire for his in-game rotation, substitution patterns, and even his reluctance to start certain players. This we all know. But then the Lakers go out here and they lose. And when they lost, this is what we've got to look at right now. We got Darvin Ham's in 2 seasons, 90-74 record, but 9-12 in the postseason, okay? 2 playoff series wins, but losers get swept in the Western Conference Finals against the Denver Nuggets, okay? Comes back this year, advances to the first round after being a playing team, okay? And then he ends up losing in the first round to the reigning defending champions. They ended the season, they lost 12 of their last 13 games against Denver. I know this was a competitive series. I know the Lakers could have easily had Game 2. They were up 20. And when Jamal Murray hit that game-winning jump shot over Anthony Davis, let's not forget they surrendered a 20-point lead. The Lakers did that. And you saw Jamal Murray and you knew that Austin Reeves wasn't going to be able to stop him. And so now we have no choice but to look at the Los Angeles Lakers for what they are. You got LeBron James. He's approaching 40. You got Anthony Davis, who's in his mid-30s. Played more games this year than he ever had in his career with 76. And you still end up going home in the first round. Austin Reeves has improved and can play, but can't guard much. D'Angelo Russell, don't get me started with his ass. This brother went scoreless in Game 3. Scoreless. After hitting 7 3-pointers in Game 2, the brother went scoreless in Game 3. Not a point. He scored as much points as me and you. That's what he did. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, yeah, Vanderbilt was hurt and their defense was compromised. And yeah, you got to look at the personnel that they had in place, the Torian Princes of the world and others, the Gabe Vinces of the world who wasn't available for 99% of the season. But in the end, here's the reality of the situation for the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James is approaching free agency, looking to get the bag and looking to get an additional 3-year deal. Anthony Davis is locked in. You locked in Austin Rivers. D'Angelo Russell's got a player option. He can choose to opt out, and the Lakers will have no means to replace him, or he could choose to opt in, which is a question mark because he knows that the Lakers are going to look to trade him for additional assets, and he may want to dictate where he gets to go as opposed to opting into his contract for $18 million and thereby being at the mercy of the Los Angeles Lakers, who can send him wherever they want to send him. So you're the Lakers. You're in a rut right now. Here's what I'm appalled by. Who the fuck says it's time to get rid of Darvin Ham? How you going to blame him? That's some straight bullshit. Let's just get it out the way right now. When you talk about Darvin Ham has been a coach in the National Basketball Association as a head coach for 2 years. He's lost to one team. That's the Denver Nuggets. I'm sorry, there's shame in that game. They're the reigning defending champions. They've got the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. When Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray on the court together, that's the best two-man tandem in basketball. They pick and roll you to death all day, all night long. Aaron Gordon is no scrub. Michael Porter Jr. has elevated his level of play. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a guy that helped the Los Angeles Lakers win a championship before you foolishly let him walk out the door along with Kyle Kuzma and Alex Caruso so you could bring in Russell Westbrook, who couldn't get nothing done for you in a Lakers uniform. That's what happened with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I know Kyle Kuzma has been in purgatory in the nation's capital, but we know he's a 6'9" dude who can shoot. We know what Kentavious Caldwell-Pope can do. And we know good and damn well that if that was Alex Caruso out there defending instead of Austin Reeves, you might have had a better shot at stopping Jamal Murray. But that is not what happened. And because that is not what happened, the Lakers are home. How's that Darvin Ham's fault? If it's Darvin Ham's fault, how come it ain't Rob Pelinka's fault? Now, I'm not advocating for any of them to get fired. But if you want to talk about replacing coaches with a better coach, how about replacing Rob Pelinka with a Bob Myers who won 4 rings in Golden State? I can tell you right now, that's his dream job. He'd love that job. He ain't going to politic for it. He ain't going to be some snake going around behind closed doors trying to undermine Rob Pelinka or anybody like that. But he is a basketball executive with Southern California roots. Who wouldn't want the Lakers job? I'd consider the Lakers job. Who wouldn't? So let's be honest here. If we're going to talk about Darvin Ham being gone, why aren't we talking about Rob Pelinka? And again, I'm not advocating for Rob Pelinka to be gone. I'm simply saying you can't look at the coach who don't have the personnel and have to sacrifice offense for defense or defense for offense whenever he was working through his rotations and then turn around and let Rob Pelinka off the hook. Can't do that. Can't do that. And I don't want to hear about some story like I saw, I think it was in The Athletic, where they talking about how, well, you know what? A player during the Lakers-Clippers game, players had to come and tell Darvin Ham this wasn't the right thing to do schematically. Try this, try this, try that. That happens all the time. The fact of the matter is, when you're looking at Darvin Ham in the rotations, y'all, coaches listen to players all the time. They have a suggestion. Players have a better suggestion. They go with the player. There ain't no reason to talk about how this man need to be fired. But I would pay attention to what Magic Johnson had to say. And here's what Magic Johnson had to say with these tweets. Laker Nation, we have a problem. All the good teams in the West are young and talented. The Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Thunder, and the Mavs. And the biggest elephant in the room is the Spurs, who with Victor Wembanyama will definitely be a playoff team next season. I think Magic Johnson needs to be drug tested on that last part. Spurs are not making the playoffs next season. Not that soon. For the Lakers to compete with all these teams, the roster must improve, he continued. The Lakers have nobody but themselves to blame. They wouldn't have been in the play-in game or finished as a 7th seed this season if they hadn't lost too many games because of load management. I don't know about that either. Anthony Davis played 76 games. LeBron James played 70 games. That's more games he ever played as a Laker. That's more games than Anthony Davis ever played in his career. I don't know he's talking about load management there. But I get his point, though. And then Magic continued. And the number one reason the Lakers can't beat Denver in a 7-game series is because the Nuggets are mentally and physically tougher than the Lakers. Well, that's true. That's true. But I don't think that's applicable to LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think that's applicable to the rest of the Lakers. It's applicable to the rest of the Lakers. That's all I wanted to say about that. Because I'm so thoroughly disgusted, it's hard to put into words. It really, really is. But I'm not done talking about LeBron James. Because he's somebody I'm going to get up into in a little bit. We got to talk about LeBron James. And his future. And what that got to do with Bronny James. And his potential future in the NBA. Who better to talk to about that than our NBA senior writer, the one and only Brian Windhorst. He's up next. Plus, I'll get into Deion and Shedeur Sanders and how they're making waves on social media. There's a lot of stuff to get into. Don't go anywhere. This is the Stephen A. Smith Show. I got a whole lot of other shit to talk about. Right on back in a moment. Okay, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for Stephen A.'s Weekly Picks. If you already don't know, I've teamed up with PrizePicks to bring you my favorite sports picks each and every single week. You see, PrizePicks is a skill-based, real money, daily fantasy sports game where you select 2, 3, or even up to 6 players and predict if they'll have more or less of their in-game stats. And the best part, you can pick and choose from all the sports that you watch: basketball, baseball, golf, tennis, my Lord, even the MMA. And if you go to prizepicks.com right now and use promo code SAS, you'll receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's right, you heard me. Go to prizepicks.com, type in my initials SAS, and get a first-time deposit match up to $100. Today, however, I will not be selecting any players or sports. I'm feeling I want to go off topic, and I'm going to select either more or less than 1.5 movies you go out to see in a month. Typically, the answer to this would be less, because most people ain't trying to go to the movies unless they know definitively that there's a movie that they absolutely positively want to see. Me, your boy Stephen A., I'm a bit different. See, I like to relax at the movies. You see what I'm saying? And let me confess to you, one of the best things that have ever happened to me was when I learned about iPick theaters. When I learned about a theater that got them damn reclining seats that damn near recline into a bed, and all you got to do is press a button and a waiter comes and take your order and they bring you food and you don't have to stand outside in the concession lines. Yo, I prefer that better than most restaurants. So guess what? I damn sure go to the movies more than 1.5 times a month, because I make sure I hit up PrizePicks more than 1.5 times a month. Just to relax, get my zen in, calm beneath the storm, relax, chill, the whole nine. That's what I like to do. Okay, that's me. That's just the way that I am. Everybody ain't like that, but your boy is. I would say I go to at least 2 movies a month. That's just me. That's how I roll, you know. I ain't into all of the popcorn. But iPick theaters, they got them chicken fingers and the burgers and the fries. They even got alcohol. Not that I'm a really drinker. I'm really not that much a drinker. I'm a casual drinker at best. But will I sip on a little Hennessy and Coke from time to time? Sure. As the late, great Michael Jackson once said, not if you're a predator, not if you're a murderer, not if you're Jack the Ripper, which I am not. Anyway, 2 movies minimum for your boy Stephen A. The answer to this question would be more. PrizePicks in the house. You see how we do? Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube. A few quick hitters before I get to my next guest, an extraordinary NBA insider and commentator for ESPN, the one and only Brian Windhorst. I'll get to him in just a second, but I want to touch on a couple of these quick hitters real quick, y'all. Going to get into the game tonight. First is the Mavericks heading back to L.A. for Game 5 against the Clippers at the Crypto.com Arena. The night series is tied 2-2, and L.A. will be without Kawhi Leonard again. No surprise there because of a sore right knee. Kyrie Irving has been balling out for Dallas while Luka's been struggling with his long-range shooting. Here's what we need to watch out for tonight. Luka says he feels guilty that he hasn't been there enough of a supporting person for Kyrie Irving. He needs to play better. He needs to do more because Kyrie has held up his end of the bargain. He's been spectacular. Luka needs to do better. I've never heard Luka talk like that before. And the fact that he's talking like that has raised my antennas because I think he's going to look to be aggressive tonight. That means he's going to look to be efficient tonight. That means he's going to look to be dominant tonight. And we already know what a bad boy he already is. So watch out for that tonight. I got the Clippers winning because they're at home, and I think that James Harden has been flowing. I can't say enough, but I still have Dallas winning this series, so they're going to win one of these games in L.A., in my opinion. We'll see whether it's Game 5 or 7. Next up is in the East. The Celtics are back home tonight in a potential closeout game against the Heat. Boston will be without Kristaps Porzingis for Game 5, who suffered that calf strain in Miami. Regardless, the Celtics are 21-4 this season without Porzingis in the lineup. They should beat Miami Heat. That's no problem. Hell, they should win the next series against Cleveland or Orlando. That shouldn't be much of a problem. The issue for me, even though Paolo Banchero is no joke, the brother special for Orlando. Here's my issue. I don't think the Boston Celtics can win the chip without Porzingis. And the calf injury has me scared because every time I think about a calf injury these days, I think about Kevin Durant having a calf injury, and ultimately that led to his Achilles tear in the finals against the Toronto Raptors back in 2019. I look at Jamal Murray, I'm worried about his calf. I'm looking at Kristaps Porzingis, I'm worried about his calf. I looked at Giannis Antetokounmpo, I'm worried about his calf, even though they're talking about him coming back. So we shall see. Keep our eyes on that. Celtics can't win the title without Porzingis. Speaking of Giannis, one more quick hitter before I get to LeBron James. The Milwaukee Bucks extended their season last night with an improbable victory over the Pacers. The Bucks became the first team in league history to win a playoff game without their top two scorers from the regular season, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak, and Damian Lillard. Head coach Doc Rivers says both are very close to returning to the series, where Milwaukee is down 3-2. I still got Indiana winning this series. I don't think Giannis should come back. I think it's too risky. I think that Indiana, they're not going to be held in check offensively the way Milwaukee was able to do last night and, of course, in game one of this series. I think that Indiana is a juggernaut offensively. I think on their home turf, they're a different animal, and I think they're going to be ultra aggressive compared to what we saw last night. I think they close out this series. Now let me get to LeBron's future before I bring in my next guest. His future and that of his son, Bronny. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski says LeBron's teaming up with his eldest son in the league is no longer a priority for the 39-year-old. LeBron has an opt-in on his current deal worth more than $51 million. The deadline for that is June 29th. Woj also reported it's unlikely the Lakers would select Bronny with the number 17 overall pick in June's draft, and they don't select again until the second round at pick 55, where Bronny is not expected to be available. Here's my thing. Based on what he did statistically in college, combined with his health issues, it is my belief that Bronny will be available by pick number 55 unless somehow, some way, some team is convinced that by grabbing him, they got a shot at getting LeBron James. I do not have sons. I was a son, but I do not have sons, okay? But I'm a dad. Let me professionally and ultra respectfully, plead to LeBron James right here on camera. Please do not have anything at all to do with your son getting to the NBA. I'm being very respectful. I'm not being disrespectful. I would never speak ill of Bronny James. He's a wonderful kid. He went through a lot health-wise. God bless him that he's still on this earth and he's healthy. And he survived that collapse at USC last summer. Thank God he's okay. And I wish him nothing but the best, and all his dreams and aspirations come true. What I want LeBron James to hear directly from me, please do not have anything to do with this kid going pro. Because if he goes pro, based off of the year that he had at USC, no one's going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's going to be excoriated. He's going to be scrutinized to the nth degree because he's going to be perceived as the individual whose only reason for being in the NBA is that his father is LeBron James. That is not doing a kid any favors, a young man any favors. You got to let him earn his stripes. I'm not saying he's not out there in the gym working hard. I'm not saying he's not working on his game. I'm not saying not to give him elite representation from Rich Paul and Clutch Sports. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying at the end of the day, I believe that kid should go back to school and show that he has the skills and the resume that warrants him being an NBA draft pick. Because as of right now, that is not the case. Which means that if he gets drafted by an NBA team, it's going to be perceived that it happened because he's your son and you had spent years telling everybody you just want to play in the league with your son. And he's going to get crucified for it. Now, I know he's not accustomed to but so much scrutiny because he's been sheltered and protected to some degree by LeBron James. That ain't going to work in the NBA. He's going to have to get on the court. And he's going to have to perform against them brothers. And they're going to come at him. And you know what they're going to say to him? Daddy ain't here to protect you now. That's what they're going to do. I'm not being negative towards Bronny James. I would never do that. I got too much respect for LeBron James, Savannah James, and that wonderful family it is. I would never do that. And that kid, I've never spoken about the kid, really. I do nothing but root for him. But if he gets drafted after averaging 4 points at USC and scoring in 19 to 25 games, not scoring a double digit, whatever it was, y'all, he doesn't have a resume that warrants him being an NBA draft pick. And they will crucify him because he's LeBron's son. And they think he got to the league under false pretenses. That's my opinion. Now that I've said my piece, it's time to welcome in my next guest, who's covered the life and career of LeBron James more closely than anyone in this business. He's a New York Times bestseller, like myself, and host of the Hoop Collective podcast. He's also a contributor to Get Up, a contributor to First Take. He does an absolutely wonderful, fantastic job for ESPN as a senior NBA writer. I'm talking about the one and only Brian Windhorst, who's on with me right now. What's up, big time? How are you, man? How's everything going?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Always glad to be with you.
Did you disagree with anything that I just said in highlighting my thoughts as to why I'm hopeful that Bronny James won't be in the NBA next season?
What I think you said is why Rich Paul gave the interview to Woj a few, I don't know, it was maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, where he sort of set the new standard. And I think the word he said was, if Bronny ends up playing with LeBron organically, that would be one thing, but that's not what we're looking for. And because I think after seeing Bronny play in college, everybody reset their expectations. Now, look, I don't assess college basketball players for a living. I don't watch college basketball, but I will tell you what the NBA scouts that I have talked to have told me, multiple of them. I asked a number of them about what they think of Bronny and his situation, and I will tell you what they say. They say he started the season and he was out of shape because he didn't get to play basketball. When he was recovering from that terrible incident, he wasn't able to really play. They had to make sure that he was okay. He had great care from the doctors at the Mayo Clinic, and he had a procedure there, but you can't play basketball. So the other thing that they say is with his heart. The other thing that they say, Stephen A., is that he was played out of position at USC. Now, I can't really elaborate. It's over my head. I know that they had some other guards there that are in the draft and were established guards. I can't speak educatedly. I will just say what I was told. He was played out of position there, and that affected his play. And what these players or what these scouts recommended was that he leave USC and go to a school where, A, he can be the starting point guard, which is the position he should play, and B, has a history of developing players. Not a school that has a history of taking super talented players, taking advantage of their talents and moving them on, but a school that has a history of developing players with coaches that have developed players over multiple years. There were some schools suggested to me. I'm not going to say them because I'm not looking to out anybody or create any headlines, but I'm sure that Rich Paul, who is elite in his field, has all of this information. So the real question becomes, is that something that can be accomplished better at a university? And by the way, I don't think it'll be USC. I think if he comes back to college, I do not think it'll be at USC. Or is that something that he can do in the G League? And I think that's what they're going to determine. That's the thing. Bronny has to go through the draft process. There's a combine coming up in early May here where there's evaluations done. Then there's going to be individual workouts. They'll know a lot more about what teams think about Bronny in 3 weeks than they do now. So when LeBron comes out and says, there's a lot of things that I have to look at and I'm not sure about, I think he is telling the truth. That said, Stephen A., when I talk to people in the league, actually, I'll ask you this question because you have been involved with the NBA for 30 years. I don't know. I don't want to age you up.
It's 30. It's 30.
This is a little game that I play with people in the NBA. I don't really have this game with people with fans because they don't understand it. But I asked the question, what's the biggest day in the NBA? And people will think and they'll go, draft day, lottery day, Christmas day, finals game 7. Right. The biggest day in the NBA for people in the NBA is Father's Day. Because if you look at the NBA, there are fathers and sons literally everywhere. We have never had in the league more sons of players or nephews of players. That's very prevalent. The genes are coming through. They've raised these players made money as players. They invested it in their children. They're raising NBA players. But when you look at front offices and coaching staffs, there are sons of coaches and players and owners and executives everywhere. If there's not a son in every organization at some level, it's 90% of them. Because the NBA is a great business. And there are tough days and people get fired and they get cut and whatever, but it's a great business. And the sons see what it's like with their dads and they want to go into it. And so what LeBron is doing is what only dozens, if not hundreds of other fathers have done.
Yeah, I agree with you, but he's also a brilliant man. This is LeBron James we're talking about, who knows the tea leaves better than most, who's very calculating with what he says and what he does, who sees the forest from the trees, who can be very manipulating when it comes to controlling narratives. And I think in one of the rare times in his life, he made a huge mistake when he announced to the world he wants to play with his son and he's willing to go wherever his son goes just to be able to play in the same uniform with his son. Because by doing that, because of his greatness and what he brings to the table, you and I both know there's basketball and then there's the business of basketball. And even though LeBron James is still one of the top 10 players on the planet right now, approaching age 40, he's number one when it comes to business. He's good for the business of basketball, better than anybody, arguably, other than Steph Curry, and even that's debatable. So when you say that, you know that teams, and there's an inordinate amount of owners who will look at it and say, that would be very, very good for business. And that would compel them to take Bronny James because they would get LeBron James as well at minimum wage, for crying out loud. What do you say to that? To people who are reminded of LeBron's assertions and, you know, what he was willing to do and what kind of impact that could ultimately have on Bronny being in the NBA?
I would say that he very articulately, or is that a word? He was very articulate and he was very strategic in how he walked away from his last media session the other night, where he basically left the door open for everything. He just said he wouldn't say anything about the Lakers. He just said, I'm not going to answer that. And then yesterday, a lot of people, because of that door that he opened, a lot of people talked about it all day long, which he knew would happen. And so he goes on to X and he puts another message on there and he says, people are talking about me, but nothing is decided. I'm going to leave my options open. But again, he's leaving his options open. He says, I got to think about it. He's not saying I'm going to be a Laker. I want to be a Laker. LA is my home. He's leaving the door open. And I believe he's going to be a Laker. I believe he's ultimately going to re-sign, but he's leaving the door open for a reason. He's leaving the door open to allow wiggle room. He's leaving the door open to do negotiation, and he's leaving the door open to see if he can affect the process. Now, I do not actually believe that he would leave Los Angeles to go play for a team just to play with Bronny, at least not this year. Nor do I believe that LeBron would ever walk into Rob Pelinka's office or call Jeannie Buss on the phone and say, would you please draft, or if he doesn't get drafted, acquire by signing Bronny. I don't believe he would do that. I do believe that he will use leverage where he thinks he can use leverage. And he's going to spend the next 2 months watching how things go, watching how things go with the Lakers. Will they make trades? Watching how things go elsewhere in the league, watching how Bronny goes through the draft process, listening to what teams and evaluators tell him and Rich Paul about what they think. All of those things. And he has left that door open several times just this week. And so I am going to respect that that door is open and say, let's indeed wait and see. But I do think he has struggled with this, Stephen A. I do think that a huge part of him wants nothing more for his legacy and for his family to be out there with Bronny feeding him in the post, with him throwing the ball to the corner and shooting. It would be the absolute completion of his career. And I think he wants it really badly. And I think he may want it even more than Bronny wants it. And I think he's got to keep himself under control, but there's no doubt that's something he's visualized. And as he has worked to keep his body in shape, as he has fought through injuries and gone through treatment and gone up into this age, part of why he's doing it is that goal. And I think that's a human reaction.
Wendy, is that the only goal left for LeBron James in basketball? Because looking at this Los Angeles Lakers squad, hearing what Magic Johnson, how he classified them, I know you've seen the tweets from Magic Johnson, and you see the parity that exists within the Western Conference or the elevated level of play. There's so many teams that are better than the Los Angeles Lakers in a lot of people's eyes. I think a legitimate argument could be made that LeBron James, the Lakers roster is pleasantly constructed. I don't know how much more they could do. I know they got about 3 draft picks that they have available to them and what have you. But an argument could be made that this was LeBron's last best shot at a championship. What do you say about that?
Yeah, and the sad, I don't say it's sad, but the reality is I think that the Lakers achieved to their level. I think, they won 47 games, they won the in-season tournament, and they put up a good fight against a better team. And if the draw had been different, maybe they get to the second round, but they exited at the appropriate level. I don't think it was a failed season. It was disappointing, I'm sure, for LeBron and their fans, but I think it's not a miscarriage that the Lakers are not moving on. The appropriate team won. And I will say that I do think that they have one swing left with AD and LeBron. They have these draft picks. They have some tradable contracts. They're not like the Phoenix Suns that have basically exhausted all of their options. They're not like some of these other teams that have nothing to trade. They have options to trade. Is there a single or 2 deals out there that could elevate them? We could debate that for the next hour. I would say probably not, but there may be, if the right trade comes along, the right, minimum free agent signing, the right guy gets healthy at the right time or is healthy, a guy on another team gets hurt at the right time. There is a pathway for the Lakers to do something, but I wouldn't favor it to happen, and I wouldn't think it would happen. But I also think that the concept that LeBron has to play for a championship every single year, and if he doesn't come close to a championship every single year, it's a failure. I think he's left that behind. Of course, he wanted to get to 6 or 7 and catch Jordan or even Kobe. Of course, that was his goal, but he also loves living in Los Angeles. His family loves living in Los Angeles. He has set up his post-career in Los Angeles. He has set up his friends and business partners in Los Angeles. There's something to be said for being happy every day that you come to work. And if that means that you don't win a 5th title and you have to retire with 4, okay. And if he is criticized for that, then he's just going to have to live his life.
Listen, to me, it's one thing not to win a 5th or a 6th title. It's another thing to walk in the seasons knowing you don't stand a chance. And I'm not saying that's the case with the Lakers, but I'm saying that's a case that LeBron James, the great LeBron James, should never find himself in. Having said all of that, is Darvin Ham going to be the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers next season?
Well, the Lakers are taking their time. It's in the late morning here as we're recording this, and they haven't done anything. I think there was a strong feel in the league that Darvin was going to be let go. I also think that the last time the Lakers made a coaching change, they fired Frank Vogel before he left the arena at a road game at the end of the season, Stephen A. I don't even think he traveled back with the team. You hear about those stories about football coaches getting fired on the tarmac.
Right.
They fired him in the locker room, basically, and they were criticized for that, and it wasn't an appropriate way to handle business with Frank Vogel, a coach who led them to a championship. And so I do think that they were sensitive to that. Even if there's a decision that's been made, I think they were sensitive, and I think they want to allow time. Darvin, I believe Darvin receives an unfair amount of blame for the way this season went. I think this roster had flaws. I think he was playing whack-a-mole a lot of times to deploy lineups out there he thought could defend, because he had an undersized team on the perimeter that didn't have good defenders, and he didn't have backup big men. And so he played AD and LeBron a lot at bigs, and he was struggling. He was searching to find guys who could play on the perimeter, who could defend, who had size, and people criticized him for it. But as you know and talked about, it's hard for him to recover when the last thing that everybody saw was a series where his team led all 5 times at the half and lost the second half, 4 of them, and where there was timeouts that were issues with, there were challenges, there was other strategy. And the fact that Anthony Davis, who is not an aggressive by nature guy, came out and criticized Darvin following game 2 in Denver, where they blew that 20-point lead, to me, it sort of made it transparent where the players might be, and the franchise is probably likely to follow.
Who should be more in the hot seat if you're Laker Nation? Who should be more in the hot seat, Darvin Ham or Rob Pelinka?
Well, Rob Pelinka has built a championship team, so he has some equity, I think, that Darvin doesn't enjoy. A guy who has coached them these last 2 years, and also what I would say is, who are you replacing him with? Because if you don't have a good answer for that, then you have to really consider it if you're going to make a move.
I don't want to replace him, Wendy. I don't want to replace him, but I wouldn't mind seeing Phil Handy finally getting a shot at a head coaching job. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yeah, well, I think Phil would have to come with a plan, and he would have to work with Rob, because even if you had the greatest coach in the world, even if you brought Phil Jackson back in his prime, he couldn't solve the challenges the Lakers have that keep them apart from the Denvers of the world, potentially the Minnesotas of the world or the Bostons of the world. And so Rob Pelinka's got to do a bunch of work too. Phil Handy is a guy who's well-liked by a lot of players, and I do think that he would be embraced by the Laker locker room. But, they also, whenever you hire a first-time head coach, you understand that you're going to have to live with the learning curve. And they just had a learning curve with Darvin. I think he handled it generally well. I think he did a lot better than a lot of first-time head coaches, but you rarely see teams hire first-time head coaches back-to-back when one, sort of fails. So that I think might be a factor.
That's fair. Before I let you get on out of here, switching subjects for a quick second. I don't know if I've looked more forward to a playoff series in recent memory than I'm looking forward to Denver versus Minnesota because of this brother, Anthony Edwards. I think MJ, Kobe, and I remember who I waited for to follow. I'm talking about of that ilk. And then this brother, Anthony Edwards, comes along. And I think he has arrived, Wendy. I think if he beats Denver, he will have officially arrived. Although some would say he's arrived already. Where do you stand?
Well, you're talking about an organization that the last time they won a playoff series, he was 2 years old. And he is 22 now. And I got a chance to spend a month with Anthony overseas last year with Team USA as they played in the World Cup. And getting to know him a little bit, seeing him on a pretty much daily basis and watching him play in that setting with other great players, he was phenomenal to learn more about. He has a very great spirit about his game. And I think he's not a conventional leader, but I think he is a leader. He stands up for his teammates. Mm-hmm. He plays at both ends of the court. He wants to be someone who follows. He has sort of a funny way and an unconventional way of tweaking his teammates and talking about his teammates. He is, as you would say, he is box office. If you don't think that this guy is electrifying, I invite you to watch one single game. He left the Phoenix Suns' jaws on the floor a couple of nights ago when Booker and KD both played awesome games and were completely outplayed by this guy on their home court in the fourth quarter in his first ever closeout game. This guy is going to be the future of the NBA. He is going to be on Christmas Day. He is going to be on opening night. He is going to be on Sunday afternoon and Saturday night. He is going to be on the sides of buildings, even though he plays in Minnesota. He is absolutely that type of player. And this is a great opportunity for him. And while we all admit that Denver is a beautiful, well-oiled machine, they are not as deep as they were last year. And they are a little bit vulnerable. The Lakers showed that. The Lakers outplayed the Nuggets for a huge portion of the series. That team last year went 16-5 in the playoffs, and totally washed out the over the last two rounds. They weren't even really tested in the last two rounds. That it was not the case. They were really tested by the Lakers in this series. And so I would say that I give Denver the edge, but Minnesota is designed to compete with them. They have the size, they have the depth, they have the star player, and I agree with you. This is appointment television, and when has anybody ever said that about the Timberwolves?
Last question. If I had told you a couple of years ago that teammates Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving would be disbanded and separated, but Kyrie Irving and James Harden would be in better situations, futures looking brighter than Kevin Durant, what would you have told me then? And how do you feel about what you've witnessed now with Kevin Durant?
I really wonder what Kevin truly thinks about watching Kyrie, because what Kyrie is doing with Luka is what the dream was. And it's only been this season, and they're only in the first round, and they could lose this series very easily, and they could really not be any further than they got in Brooklyn. But this Kyrie is what KD wanted to play with. And Luka offering support to Kyrie, Kyrie offering support there, it's remarkable. And the way I described what happened in Brooklyn was that was a basketball tragedy. There are many other tragedies that take place in the world. I want to clarify that. But that was a grouping of players that had the opportunity to be extremely special. And not only that, Kyrie is a joy to watch play basketball. Kevin Durant is a joy to watch play basketball. I don't love watching James Harden, but there's a mastery in the way he plays when he's at his best that a lot of people enjoy, and you have to respect it. Those guys playing together had the potential to have a run like we saw with the Miami Heat. I have such fond memories of those springs in Miami with the white hot playoffs and all that stuff, and watching those big games. Even when they lost, you have great memories of that. That should have and could have been the Brooklyn Nets. It fractured into 1,000 pieces, and KD is, right now, he's got to be sitting at home thinking, what happened? And that's the thing. KD has, the only thing that's eluded him is happiness. He hasn't been able to have it. Kyrie is happy right now, and I really wonder how he feels about that.
Wow. The great NBA senior writer extraordinaire, the one and only Brian Windhorst, right here with yours truly, Stephen A. Appreciate you as always, my man. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
All right, take care. Make sure you watch Brian Windhorst all over NBA Today again as well. Anyway, coming up, a unique tribute to the Divine Nine. I'll explain in a moment. Plus, the one and only primetime Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur Sanders, are chirping on social media. Why? I'll get into all of that next, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, over the digital airwaves of YouTube. Back with more in a minute. Have you all been watching the NBA playoffs? I'm sure you have. But do you know what makes watching them even more exciting? Prize Picks, that's right. With a big game happening every night, Prize Picks is here to help you cash in on all your basketball knowledge. You see, Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app where you can select two or more of your favorite players and then pick more or less on their projected in-game stats. But Prize Picks doesn't stop with basketball. You can choose from several sports, the MLB, NHL, the MMA, and everything in between. I make my picks and submit early, all in less than 60 seconds. Then I sit back and I chill and watch. And get this, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. You heard me, right? Go to prizepicks.com and use code SAS, that's my initials, of course, for a first time or a first deposit match of up to $100. That's SAS when you go to prizepicks.com and use the promo code. Pick more, pick less. Guess what? It's that easy. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airways of YouTube. And once again, thanks to the great Brian Windhorst for coming on the show, breaking down some stuff with us about LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. Remember, he's been covering LeBron James since LeBron James was in junior high school. That's how far back Brian Windhorst goes. LeBron James was once quoted at a press conference as saying, nobody knows him more in media than Brian Windhorst. So that's why I was apropos to have him on in the aftermath of the Lakers season coming to an end and LeBron James ultimately trying to portray a level of indecision when it comes to his future, along with the fact that his son is entering the NBA draft. Anyway, before I get to your tweets, I want to talk about my man primetime Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, who are back in the headlines this week. You may recall that more than a dozen players left Coach Prime's squad during the spring transfer portal window, including several projected starters. Some of them are now taking shots at the coach and the program on the way out, according to reports. The latest remarks come from safety Xavier Smith, who says he didn't appreciate the way Coach Prime handled roster management. One of Smith's former teammates in the secondary, Cormani McLean, had this to say, quote, look at this, ready to get to a new place and get to work. No hard feelings. Some people just got to take a step back from things sometimes. Certain people. I feel like I just don't want to play for clicks. I actually want to be involved with a great leading program that's going to develop players, end quote. Now, McLean was the top-ranked cornerback in the 2023 class. Deion Sanders and his sons have responded in a series of tweets you see here, and some are not loving the way the Sanders family are handling this situation. You see the tweets right there from Shedeur and Prime Time. Of course, UTEP coach Scotty Walden, who previously coached Xavier Smith, came to his defense in this tweet saying, quote, Smith is the furthest thing from soft. Okay, that's what the coach says. He said, I coached Xavier at AP and now here at UTEP. He is the furthest thing from soft. He's a great kid / player and led us to a conference title. He answered a question honestly in an interview and was just telling his side. He was a freshman AA and has an extremely bright future on and off the field. I am glad he is on my team. Check the tape. Everybody knows that Deion Sanders was like a brother to me. We're pretty tight. We talk frequently, not every week, not every month, but we talk frequently enough throughout the year. I love him dearly. I respect him. And I don't like seeing any player castigate anything that he's associated with. But I need to be fair. And whereas I don't like a player speaking about it, and I certainly don't think that primetime Deion Sanders is playing for clicks, I do think that somebody who does need to be checked just a little bit is Shedeur Sanders. Nobody else is saying it, so I'm going to say it. You see this watch right here? This little Rolex I got on? See that? You know one of the things that I never do with my watch? I never did that. And in my profession, quite frankly, I win a lot. Shedeur Sanders did that each time they won a game. When they were 3-0, he did it. When they beat Colorado State, and that coach was trying to talk smack at Deion and the program, Shedeur Sanders met him at midfield. Shedeur Sanders is miniature in my estimation, but he is a stud. He is a special talent. And even though they were 4-8, and even though they were 1-8 in the conference, and even though they ended the season losing 6 straight, it's not an indictment against Shedeur Sanders because this brother is special. He can play, y'all. He was sacked 52 times, an FBS high 52 times at the quarterback spot. It was so bad in terms of the level of protection he wasn't receiving. Deion Sanders got to a point where even as a coach, he had to remember he was a dad, and I got to protect my son because look at what I'm exposing him to. I mean, good Lord. And still, this brother threw for over 3,000 yards, threw 27 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions, over 3,600 yards to be exact, completed about 68% of his passes, if I remember. Shedeur Sanders can ball. I think he has a bright future. I think he's going pro. I think we all know it. I think he's going to be a spectacular young talent in the NFL one day. And I am not questioning his character by any stretch of the imagination. But it's not hard to see that some of this could be brought on himself. At the end of the day, you're 4-8. At the end of the day, you were 1-8 in the conference. At the end of the day, you did get blown out by Oregon on national television after you were 3-0. And you had the coach for Oregon talking about, we ain't playing for clicks. We ain't playing for social media. I don't have the quote in front of me. We're going to play out in the field. That's what he was saying. People were taking shots at primetime Deion Sanders. Let me say this. Deion Sanders can say anything he wants. He was an All-American. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He is a Hall of Famer and universally recognized as the greatest cornerback to have ever played the game of football. This brother was so elite that he shut down half a field. Deion Sanders was so elite that you had offensive coordinators and head coaches and quarterbacks scared to throw in his vicinity. He had to fake and act like somebody could outrun him and leave them open for a second just so somebody could have the courage to throw the ball out there before he came in out of nowhere and grabbed interceptions. Did I even bring him up as a punt returner and a kickoff returner? Deion Sanders was so elite that his name Primetime was so apropos that it was almost blasphemous and sacrilegious to play him in daylight hours. That's how big time Primetime Deion Sanders was. He can say what he wants. These damn players, including his children, is a different matter entirely. It's not that they can't play. I'm sure they can. Shedeur especially. Shiloh ain't no joke either. These brothers can play. And coming to the defense of their father is admirable. And I'm not trying to discourage that. But how you do it matters. And when you do it with bravado and disrespect, as opposed to humility and protection of your father, you force people to look at you, as opposed to looking at you protecting your father. See, when you hear them speak and you listen to them come out and say the kind of things that they say, well, guess what happens? You're thinking about their bravado and whether or not they have the record to back it up, which they don't. Then you're looking at the transfers. You're seeing what's transpiring, and you're wondering why are these people looking to go elsewhere. And I heard Deion originally speak on the transfers and talk about sometimes people are transferring because they're usually reserves. They ain't getting that playing time. And he has a point there. But Deion Sanders is handling it the way it's supposed to be handled. His children, who are young adults, not necessarily so. And I say this respectfully to Shiloh and Shedeur, two ballers who I believe have bright futures, who I wish nothing but the best. You're Deion Sanders' sons. That means you will always have my support because I love your daddy like a brother. But it is important that you understand how you're communicating and how you're coming across. Your dad has earned it, and he doesn't do that. I'm looking at a quote from primetime Deion Sanders, right? And I'm saying to myself, my goodness, this guy is something else. Because I've seen some quotes from him where he's just deferential. Said Lord's Jesus, and then he talks about humility and, just not bringing, not trying to hurt anybody and just smile at the person who hates on you. I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have the quote right in front of me. He says because they try to act like they hate you, but they really don't. They're just upset that they're not you. They're not in your position. They're not as blessed or appear to be as blessed as you may appear to be at that particular moment in time. And he has good points there, but he's not denigrating. They're young. Shedeur and Shiloh, I get it. They're protective of their daddy, I get it. But somebody needs to tell them that moving forward, as you communicate in defense of your dad and what he's doing, how you communicate and how you come across matters. Because you represent him and you represent the program. And more so Shedeur than Shiloh. I'm going to remind you again. You did this every time you won. But you lost more than you won. What were you doing when you lost? That's something to remember as you move forward. Because I expect Colorado to be uplifted by primetime Deion Sanders' presence. I don't expect Shedeur Sanders to be there long while it's happening. Chances are you're going to lose more than you win. And when that happens, how do you handle yourself? Today's day and age is far different than when your dad was young. The spotlight is far more magnifying and illuminating. And you can hurt yourself more than you help yourself unintentionally. Just by willing to fight every little battle. Your father is prime time. He doesn't need you to do that. He can handle it. Focus on being the best you can be so you can back up all of this with victories instead of just stats. It'll go a long way, my brother. It'll go a long way. Now, to your tweets. Let's get to that before I get on out of here for the day. Put up the tweets, please. Let me see what the first one says. At Big Baby Jonathan writes, give me your top 5 sports commentators of all time. I probably can't do that because I've never thought about that. I would tell you that Howard Cosell comes to my mind. John Madden comes to my mind. I look at guys like Bryant Gumbel and Bob Costas, the Hall of Famers, the great ones, no doubt about that. Vince Scully, can't forget about him. Tim McCarver. I mean, there's a whole bunch of people. There's just famous names and what have you. And it depends on how people are looking at it today. I'm not going to throw myself in there because that comes across wrong. I think that I'm pretty damn good at what I do, but I leave it to somebody else to define my level of greatness. I'm blessed and fortunate to have been #1 ratings and revenue and all of that stuff for quite a while, but that's here today, gone tomorrow. In terms of history and what you do historically, there's a lot to be said for what the great ones who've paved the way for all of us have done. I can't really give you the 5 sports commentators of all time at this particular moment in time. Because I'm in the profession, I have to give it far more serious thought than just reacting to a tweet. So I apologize for that. Next tweet, show me what you got, please. Give it to me. At Coach Tomlin 13, right? Stephen A., what is your top 5 fruits? Good Lord, these top 5. What the hell's wrong with you people? I love grapes. I love watermelon, oranges, tangerines. Bananas are healthy. Obviously, I eat that a lot. I love cherries. I love cherries. I do. It's probably it's right up there with grapes. Yes, and when I say the grapes, not the green grapes, I'm talking about the purple grapes. Purple grapes and the cherries. That's what I like. Another tweet. We got one before I get on out of here, please. At Grayson Drew J writes, hey, Stephen A., are there more wheels or doors in the world? How the fuck would I know the answer to that question? I mean, Jesus. Okay, I don't know the answer to that question. Are there more wheels than doors in the world? Come on, y'all. Help a brother out. Can we give me sensible questions that I could possibly answer? Possibly? My God. I'll go with doors. How about that? Last tweet. What's up? At Shy Sports Ross writes, would you rather have prime Michael Jordan, but he has one hand tied behind his back, or prime LeBron, but he has his legs tied together and has to hop. Clearly, it would be Michael Jordan with one hand tied behind his back. If you got your legs tied together and all you can do is hop like a damn kangaroo, how is that going to help you in basketball? Other than you jumping when you near the rim, you can't dribble the ball 94 feet that way. You can't make a move on somebody or whatever. I mean, that's another dumb question. I'm going to have to get on my social media, people, whatever. These are some dumbass questions, y'all. These are some dumbass questions. All right, and I see some of your avatars, stuff like that. I mean, some of your Twitter handles, rather. I mean, y'all are grown people. Y'all, it ain't like you children asking me these questions. There's some dumbass adults out there now. What the hell are these questions? It's just stupid. I mean, give me something to work with, okay? I don't mind bizarre questions, but I don't want stupid questions. All right? Lord, before I get on out of here, let me say this. I'm a proud member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Rude Dog, y'all know what time it is. I'm happy to see the announcement today that Macy's department store will pay tribute to the Divine Nine with a men's collection. For those of you who don't know, the Divine Nine are the historically black-founded fraternities and sororities of the National Pan-Hellenic Council. The menswear collection will include an assortment of business suits, polos, blazers, cardigans, and accessories in each of the fraternity's signature colors. The collection will roll out in July, and that follows the 2022 release of a women's sorority line. Needless to say, Omega, royal purple, old gold, you know. I'm going to get that. Rest of the colors, I don't know. I can't help y'all there. All right? But the royal purple and that old gold, Omega Psi Phi all day, every day, baby, no doubt. No doubt. That's it for this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Thanks again to the one and only Brian Windhorst for being on the show. Got nothing but love for y'all. Appreciate the love. Keep it coming. I'm going to keep on coming, y'all. Okay? Talk to y'all in a couple of days. Same bad time, same bad channel. Until later, everybody. Peace and love. Be safe. Enjoy your day.